this opportunity to reset ourselves in all the foundational structures of society. So education, medicine, finances, governmental systems, everything is kind of like being stress tested at the moment. And I'll also have a look at, okay, what's happening on an external environment is also happening on an internal environment. So we've been looking at kind of like within ourselves, kind of like how are we being stress tested at the moment, and what can we include to be able to manage that in a way that is the best conducive way or conscious way of doing it, best for our health. And you're absolutely right that no matter what, our internal GPS, which I call intuition, which is your gut instinct as well, always knows best. We know best. Internally, there's this innate wisdom that we know, which is why when we go visit a doctor, the doctor says X, Y, and Z, and there's a resonance with that and going, okay, yes, this is going on. But sometimes there's a like, maybe I need a second opinion, kind of thing. But we need to trust that gut instinct in knowing that, okay, what is in the highest and greatest good for me more than anything. And you're absolutely right. We've been conditioned to look outside of us for happiness, to look outside of us for love, to look outside of us for a whole bunch of other things. And I think it's a little bit unfair because we place that responsibility on our partners, on our children, on our friends to make us happy, to love us. But what is happening is that we're missing the point, is that nobody's coming to rescue us. We need to rescue ourselves. So give ourselves the love that we need, give ourselves the happiness that we need, but it's by creating those habits that actually help us. So I am happiest when I wake up in the morning, I work out, I do my meditation, I do my yoga, I journal, I read, I have this miracle morning that I created for myself. And if anything is missing, so if I go 2 days without meditating for some reason, I feel off balance. But it's finding what is that for a specific person. I mean, that might sound like torture for some people, but it's finding what is the habit within them that steps them into their highest expression. So just like we have bad habits, we can create good ones to replace those as well. Now, for us, I look at a lot of patterns. So, it's a pattern. Oh, I see this in my mother. I'm turning into my mother or my father or whatever it is. Once we realize those patterns, so for example, another one is like, I find myself back in the same place over and over again. Why do I date the same type of jerk over and over and over again? This is a pattern. Well, once that comes into our consciousness that goes, okay, I have a pattern of self-sabotaging or codependency or whatever it is. Once we become conscious of that habit or that pattern, if we continue to do the same cycle, then it's not a habit or a pattern, it's a choice.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so this is where we're starting to shift into that. Okay, what do I need? And I'm also in the process of finishing writing a book with a co-author of mine, Kellyanne Bass. And in there, we talk about things in junk food or soul food. And it's okay to have junk food once in a while, but what are we putting into our minds? Junk food, soul food. What are we putting into, the people that we're hanging out with? Junk food, soul food. What are our habits? Junk food, soul food. What type of sex are we having? Junk food, soul food. And it's
Everything.
things into everything. Is it junk food or is it feeding my soul? And there's no judgment either way, but if you're going to do it 100% and don't feel guilty. It's a choice, but it's kind of like every choice has, it's Newton. For every action, there's a reaction, right? It's kind of like one of those things. So,
That's the scaling effect, no? That's the building up effect that eventually, if you keep choosing what you know that is not healthy for you or the junk choice, of course, that is going to permeate and be pervasive in your health, in terms of your whole health. I'm not talking about your body health. I'm talking about your soul. I'm talking about your mind. I'm talking about everything. Because right now, I think by 2022, you have understood that we are not separated. It is not the mind, the body. It is not like that. It works all together. And we have to finally address that as a whole, and taking the choices as you mentioned. No, it's just like, um, every time we have time to take a decision, we have that space where we can just insert one question. Is it going to make me grow? This, in terms of whatever, your health, your mental, your finance, is this going to make me grow, or is this going to make me small or shrink or stressed? So just that simple question will answer everything. If in the morning, for example, you are trying to install the habit of doing exercise, and you have two choices: either you do the exercise routine or you don't. So what happens if you don't do it? How are you going to feel? What is going to happen to your body? What happens if you say yes? So just answer those questions, and the answer will be get up. Your brain won't think about that, because you're not you your inner wisdom will tell you get up. So listen to that voice in that moment, right after you make the question, and don't even think about um, putting a snooze to the alarm, or staying in bed because it's cold. No, take the step towards growth and take the choice, because that moment is where you have the power of deciding into expanding or going down or staying in the same place. That is actually the definition of dying. Even if it scares you, you are, if you are not growing, you are dying,
Yeah.
because everything has to grow. That's nature. Have you seen outside and just take a look at your window, watch and witness all the plants, all the nature, all the trees, everything that is outside is taking the choice of growing. Any plant or any nature made uh, sentient being is taking the choice of dying, or is taking the choice of not growing. So we are by nature being called to do what is best for us, and don't wait the marketing to tell you what to do, because that can be also leading to frustration. As Natasha mentioned, what her routine or my routine in the morning is might not be for you, might be a struggle, might be draining for you. So find your own routine, but find it asking the question, is it going to make me grow? That's it. No?
Absolutely. No, I absolutely agree. And then there's also the a lot that's been coming in as well is that we control our mind. Our mind doesn't control us. Um, where if we let it go, it creates this habit and makes it a little bit harder to break. But the good thing about habits and making conscious habits is it's like going to the gym. At the beginning, it's a little bit hard and the muscles hurt and all the rest of that. But once you get going, you start to build that muscle. It's like any habit that we're trying to instill, there needs to be determination and discipline to get up and do it anyway, until it becomes a habit that is kind of like just part of your daily routine, which is very, very important. I also think a lot about, starting new habits is we tend to look in the past. So, I've always done this, and it's almost kind of like,
Did you used to do exercise when you were in the school when you were younger?
I did. I started exercising intensively in college,
Okay.
but before that, I hated it. So, what about you?
I'm asking because for me it started to be a passion, more or less in high school. But
Okay.
during college, I had a lot of memories of performing exercise in between classes or exams many
Ah.
times. So I
Mm.
left the school and I went to do exercise, and then I applied the exam, or I got up early in the morning if the exam was going to be early,
Mhm.
and it helped me a lot, more than any other classmate that I had, because many of them stayed in the library or in their houses, and they didn't sleep so much, and they were studying a lot, and I didn't care about those things. And I really respected well my sleep, because I really couldn't um, study at night. I was falling asleep constantly. So I said, I'm not gonna do it. I'm just going to wake up early, read something, or review some of the things that were going to be asked, do exercise, and then do the exam, and don't touch anything again. And that routine started to work for me a lot, in the sense that I was made fun of because I didn't study too much. No, well, in that case, no.
Didn't study like right up to the last minute.
Yes, I mean, I left those things like for pieces. Like
Mhm.
I divided my routine in studying the day before, one part, then going to sleep at the same time, then wake up earlier. That's what I was going to do. Wake up 1 hour or 2 hours sometimes before my usual time,
Mhm.
read the content again, and then do exercise. And
Blood to your brain.
sorry,
Blood to your brain.
yeah, yes,
Nutrients and oxygen.
yes. So that routine worked a lot for me, and I didn't have to stay awake or feel so much pressure, because I also arrived to my exams relaxed, not stressed as the others, and they were trying to review the things at the last minute and asking me questions, and I didn't want to answer any questions, because I said no, because I'm going to forget what I already know, or I'm going to get confused. So I am not listening. Whatever you're saying, I'm not listening. After the exam, ask me whatever you want, but right now, no.
My gosh, that's so cool. We're so I learned more about that in college, not high school, but I remember in well, actually it was really more in grad school that I had learned about how the brain remembers things and that we're much better off to have a rest, especially even better a good sleep so that the brain could put everything into long-term memory. And then I learned the same thing, like right before, you don't want to be practicing it right up until, because we're actually sucking the energy from the brain at that point that we could be saving it to use for that test or that big competition or whatever we need to do next. So that's why I didn't study right up to the end. But I didn't exercise right before. I did notice though when I would exercise, specifically longer runs, like we know that whole thing about the runner's high, that there was that calming effect and the blood pressure goes down. And for a large part of the day, I'd be like blissed out, just
Yes.
so relaxed and nothing could make me tense, on those days. And I think that's a really interesting piece too, because we used to think it was endorphins, but then we found out that the endorphins can actually enter the brain. So it's much more. We learned lately that it's endocannabinoids. It's our body that makes our own cannabinoids. We don't necessarily need to smoke them.
Yeah.
And it makes us feel relaxed and not so, well, basically not stressed out, not tense.
Yeah. Yes. And I really didn't know too much about the science in those times. I was just doing it because I enjoyed a lot exercise by that time. So, and I just felt my body that it was reacting much better to the information, no, to the retention, to the information, and I didn't like to learn things by memory exactly as they were asked. I was more like trying to do a summary of the things, writing it down by myself, and then summarizing everything as much as possible and using it and replaying those things. I mean, reviewing those things, not reviewing the whole content. So that's
That's the best way of learning, though, David. I mean, I kept trying to tell my students that don't memorize if you don't have to. And I never made my tests so that they would work that way. You know, you have to understand the concepts and how things work so that you can actually take this stuff out into real life and replicate it in your mind when you need to use that information, versus if you're just memorizing things. Well, first of all, that kind of falls off very fast after you're done with the test. And then second of all, it doesn't solidify those memories in your brain. And from talking to a number of people who are studying how to learn, after teaching for this several years, I was learning about how when we do that, when we put different things together in our mind, like putting together a puzzle, and so we're using different pieces of our brain, and therefore we're bringing different neuronal connections together, and it's much more solid in terms of a memory than if it's just one connection, which is memorizing this word connecting to this definition. You know, it's completely different kind of memory and much less long-term if we memorize.
exactly. And I also remember some pieces of music because I was usually doing it with music and well, classical music. That's what I use because I like it for those kind of things. And then when I was exercising, I was trying to replay those memories, no, to replay the content or at least the things I remember better because I was writing it with my hand, and that makes another connection of our
Right.
body to the information, no?
Moving your hand with the pen, which is another mind-body connection that helps that memory to
It's
solidify.
another kind of exercise, no?
Right? Yes.
It's another kind of exercise, but it's an exercise that is enhancing your brain in the moment that you need the information, in the moment that you need whatever it is that you have to talk about. And it's much better to understand and much better to explain to another person the information. That would be even like the biggest, no, when you need to teach it, that's when you most
understand it.
Yeah.
Talking about it. And that, so I would say to my students, you want to not just read it, you want to write or draw, you know, pictures or something to help you remember. Then you want to speak about it. So exactly what you're saying, if you can bring it out of your mouth from your brain in a way that makes sense. That's another way of organizing that material. And then
if I'm picking up well, and the story that you are telling about yourself was based mainly on not accepting who you are, because you were a reflection of many beliefs that didn't match with what you wanted. So if you translate that to the science of how the body turns against you, that is an autoimmune disease, that is exactly what was being reflected to you. So the body wisdom was telling you, this is the disease. The disease is an autoimmune disease, which means that I'm rejecting something
Right.
that is myself. But you were rejecting a self that was created by the beliefs of people, of society, of a lot of programming, which is that now that we extrapolate that to the population that are also more now than ever coursing with those kind of diseases, of autoimmune diseases or chronic diseases, which are very similar in many ways of how the body defends, we can just pick up that line of thought and just analyze that for the people that are listening, so that we can pay attention that there will be several points in time where we feel that um, contradiction of ourselves inside of us. And every now and then, if we just listen to the body and listen to those subtle symptoms that is giving us, we can pick up those messages before they grow up, before it's more damaging the disease. So I think that what you did by picking up the courage that you had inside of you to say that I am going to be strong, that's when you took your own self and you said, this is myself, my true self, the one that is strong. And I'm just going to peel the layers of the old self or the program self, and I'm going just to shed them, to just take them
Exactly.
away. And I believe that that's when your recovery start going up.
Very much, very much. That's exactly when, because that is when I decided to change. Until that point, I was not ready to change. I was in a place where I believed that like everything was my fault. I was blaming myself for everything. Although there was no reason to blame, I was taking up all inside, as you said earlier. Like you are making yourself feel guilty for things that you're not even responsible for. Now that I think about it, I understand the immaturity behind that thought process and belief system that I had. But at that point, because there was no conscious living, I would say that my thoughts or my emotions, I was not conscious about them. I was just picking everything and then just going in all directions, wherever events and triggers were pulling me. So this autoimmune disease was required for me to realize this truth. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. And it is what happens with, I will dare to say that more than 90% of people, they usually have to be into those places to listen, to pay more attention to those signals, and to really question, is this me, or is this the beliefs, and why do I let those beliefs become the person that I don't really like, or I am not really that person?
Yeah.
No. So you start asking those questions, and that's probably like when you are just like a knot of a string or something
Yeah.
that is twisted and has to be untwister or unravel in order to get the truth, no? And that, I think that that's a transformation process.
Yep, very much. It is a transformation process. And it is, as you said, like those signals are so important to recognize because it is prompting you to take action for those. And if we ignore those, that's when it has these ripple effects and becomes so adverse and uncontrollable to a point where you cannot bring it back.
Yeah. And I also had an experience not as big in terms of the disease, but I was also picking up those messages from my body when I was working in the pharma industry, and I was just getting sick, not like a diagnosed disease, but I was depressed. I was just really tired. I was just trying to watch something to light me up instead of living, instead of just going out, instead of having relationships, instead of just being myself, because I could recognize that I was losing myself in that kind of environment, and that was my wake up call. That's when I said, when I was just tired of living the same movie and just watching the same scenes, and I said, this is not life. I mean, I have success in terms of the money, I have things, I am comfortable in an economic situation, but I feel empty. But I don't feel that this is the best of me. I was feeling that I was wasted, sort of saying, wasted in talent, wasted in the things that I really could do for people and could help, because I had always that spark inside of me of uh, just teaching. Also, I love teaching. I love passing the knowledge on and trying to learn more. I am avid of things to know, and I love to explain to people things, and I love to explain and see the transformation process in others also.
Yes.
So I really really relate to everything that you happened, that you passed.
Right.
And I think that there are a lot of people now that are questioning themselves more
Yes.
and more. Why am I in this job? Or why am I doing this? Why I don't feel excitement for life again? No, like I used to, or like when I was younger, I had, no?
Yeah.
So you start losing yourself. So
Yeah.
how do you see in your case, how did you saw that you were losing yourself? I mean, at certain point, I think, or I assume, that you were just thinking, this is not me. This is a person that is tired and that is just getting into a point of toxicity where I have to say stop and just take a pause, no?
Yeah. Yeah. So, to give an answer to your question, it was completely my creation. That's what I understood. It was not because I was having any severe mental health issue or anything, but the way I was receiving signals from others, and we all do this in our daily life. When people communicate to us, everybody has their own belief system, everybody has their own way of interpreting things, and then translating it into our own language and then giving it a meaning. So that is where I was getting stuck. I was receiving the signals. There was nothing wrong with the other person who was giving the signals. I was interpreting it in a language with my own expectations, which I had my own definitions where this is supposed to be like this. This is the way things should be. And I was so rigid on those kind of belief systems, from my, whether it's my workplace or whether it was my family, everywhere I had these strong expectations and beliefs about how a workplace should be, how my work should be. And all these should be's was creating the problem, which I realized very later, when things were, as you were asking, when did you understand that you were losing it? It was, I I was not able to change anything. I was not able to change anything at all around me. And then I was looking at, why am I actually going with this expectation? I started looking deeper into my expectations and started approaching each of these situations without expectations. Things became easier when I had zero expectations. So that is where I understood that everything that we conceive, when it is actually mixed with certain limited thinking and belief systems, it becomes our own creation of problems. When we don't bring in our limited thinking or limited bias or beliefs in there, then there is no problem. So that's how I understood that it was my thinking and my creations or creations of these movies, which I was playing in my mind, which was creating all this drama.